well, criminal defense lawyers are generally considered people who defend rapists and murderers and everybody that's wrong in the society. So coming from, obviously the military background and then the police background, why did you do this? Why did you take this side and not the some other, niche that was more like personal injury or immigration or something like that? Have you tried implementing a system where when a lead comes through your website or a referral, because I believe criminal defense has a lot of referrals, I believe, right? So if that is coming, how do you ensure that you know exactly at a very granular level that this person comes from this marketing effort and this is the amount of money we got to put into this channel so that we get the most ROI at the end? I've heard that body worn camera footage has completely changed criminal defense, specifically in the last 5 years. So, in your experience, BWC helped the defense or prosecution more, or is that something changing right now? Today we have a very, very interesting guest, a Marine Corp, combat combat veteran, a former Michigan cop, and a former prosecutor, and now a criminal defense attorney. He's worn all hats, connected to each other. So he's the officer who went viral in 2014 for buying a struggling mom a car seat instead of writing her a ticket. And in fact, that's a very important thing to mention here. CNN named him one of their extraordinary people that year, and today he runs Ben Hall Law in East Lansing. So Ben Hall, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me, and you dug that one up, huh?
Yes, definitely. I always research thoroughly on my guests. So I'll just start from there because this is a very, very interesting fact and it's been very, very long as well. So take me back to October 2014. You pull over Alexis Di Lorenzo, I believe, and her daughter. So what happened there? Why did you not give them a ticket and took them to Walmart?
Yeah, that's taken me back. Wow, I can't believe it's been 12 years already.
Yeah.
Actually, reached out to Lexi not too long ago, and her daughter is, I believe, a senior in high school. So it's just time flies. But yeah, I was working, and we actually got a call that there was a car driving down the road with the kid not in a car seat or not buckled or something like that, and it stemmed from a dispute. It was her Lexi's ex-husband, his wife called on her. That's the part nobody else knows, but that's what happened. I mean, Lexi knows it, but so anyway, I'm sitting there and the car drives by, so I get behind it, pull him over, and the driver wasn't Lexi. Lexi was the passenger, and sure enough, her kid isn't in the car seat. So I'm talking to them, and I'm trying to fix the problem, not add on to the problems. So I just told them to follow me to Walmart. So we drove a couple miles out to Walmart, went back and picked one out, went up and paid for it. And it was, I mean, this was just another day is all it was. And one of the loss prevention people, we work quite closely with them because they get a lot of people that steal from their store. And so we're out there a decent amount, and she saw me and she took a picture of us, and then she posted it to her social media, and it just took off from there. And it's kind of crazy that it did, because I didn't do anything new. I did what cops do all the time, and it was just, it was the right time and place of where we were as a country. It was coming off the heels of the events in Ferguson and in New York and Baltimore, and I think people were looking for a reason to like cops again. And why this one is the story, I don't know. I have no idea. I do know that what I did wasn't anything special or different than what others do. You talk to 90% of the cops in that same scenario, they're going to do the same thing. And it was a pretty surreal moment in time. There was a lot of things that I did. I mean, I was I got to fly out to California and I was on a TV show. And I mean, there's things that I just couldn't have imagined when I
Mm.
put on the vest and duty belt that day that I was going to go through. It's just pretty surreal.
That's an amazing story, by the way, and so inspiring. Because I remember when I was a kid, I used to watch a lot of John McCain Die Hard series, and I was very impressed by the cops. But things have changed. Don't you agree? By in today's time, people are really see cops as dangerous because there are incidents involving ICE and other authorities. Do you think that needs to be changed today?
The What people are seeing is the ugly reality of what law enforcement is, and they aren't always right. There's plenty of mistakes that cops make. Um, Unfortunately, some of the things that are being highlighted in the media,
Mm.
um, they are they're trying to take an incident in a vacuum,
Mm.
and they forget that cops are humans.
Mm.
And what happened in Minnesota, I believe it was the ICE shooting, um, tragic and unfortunate. Um, there's there is lack of training there, but our system does not, and I don't think it should, attribute murder to lack of training.
Mm.
Um, Employment issues, civil liability, absolutely. Um, but when that officer, that ICE agent, got in front of that vehicle, he's allowed to do that. Is it
Mm.
smart? I can't say that it's exactly smart because we're going to lose against the vehicle. But when she did pull forward, that gave the justification. And
Mm.
there's video that I saw that,
Mm.
um, it looked like she actually made contact with him. Granted, he put himself in that position, but that position is a place he's allowed to be because
Mm.
she was doing interfering or
Mm.
impeding. And I get it. This is probably the narrative that people don't want to hear, but that is
Mm.
that is the perspective of a law enforcement officer, and that's also my view on it. I haven't done a lot of research into it. I've seen the videos, I've watched them over and over again, and it's an unfortunate, it's an absolutely tragic situation that did not have to happen.
Mm.
Um, but I think there are things that cops um, can do. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's where that goes. And that's a lot of what I see in this line is that just because you can, the law completely supports it.
Mm.
Doesn't mean you should. Maybe there's a different avenue here, and we should be exploring those avenues as opposed to um, putting yourself in a position where the only other alternative is deadly force. Now,
Yeah.
to attribute that to murder, I have a very difficult time making
Mm.
that leap. But civil liability and other methods of accountability, absolutely. Just attributing it to murder is where I don't get on board with that.
Right. Yeah, it was a tragic accident, and I think it should have been avoided. But a person
Yeah.
like you who has worn, I think, four different uniforms. So you were a Marine Corps first, and then a police officer, and then a prosecutor, and then a lawyer. Do you, which role has really shaped you into Ben Hall today the most?
Today, no question,
Yeah.
my opening my own firm and
Mm.
being a criminal defense attorney has shaped everything that I've held to be true for my life.
Mm.
Um, up until this point, and I still do fundamentally believe that we have the best judicial system in the world. It is flawed. It is
Mm.
significantly flawed.
Mm.
But compared to other countries, I do believe that ours is the best, but that doesn't mean there's no room for improvement. I think there
Yeah.
is. But I've always been very kind of black and white. And, well, if you don't like the consequences, don't do whatever it is you're doing.
Mm.
Being on this side and experiencing what it's like when you have a person, two people charged with the same exact thing, they could even have similar backgrounds.
Mm.
And just because it's in one area, they're going to get a lesser punishment than if they go to a
Mm.
rural county where the judge is probably, if they're both felonies, one is significantly looking at greater chances of prison as opposed to
Mm,
the other who may just go on probation for a little bit, not even do any jail time.
mm,
And that difference is huge. But you also deal with, um, prosecutors who have a very narrow frame of reference, and they approach things. Um, they don't see things for what the case, the big picture.
mm,
It's just about they did it. Here's the consequence. I don't need to offer you anything.
mm,
Go to trial if you don't like it.
mm,
And there's a ton of issues with that
mm,
mentality, both from their standpoint and where it puts the person charged with the crime, the position they're in. So, um, definitely being on this side has shaped who I am today. I'm still very much pro law enforcement. We
mm,
represent a lot of cops who get
mm,
involved in critical incidents, but I
mm,
also hold them accountable.
mm,
I recognize that there are standards that have been taught and ingrained in decades of law enforcement teaching that
mm,
just because you can doesn't mean you should.
yeah.
And that does not that's not taught. That's something you experience over life. I mean, I
Mm,
remember when I first got the badge, I was a
mm,
little older. I was out of the Marine Corps. But I was also military police in the Marine Corps.
mm,
It was like, I'm going to show that I know the law and that I can, excuse me, that I can enforce it and all that stuff. But, you know, at some point you gain life experience and then you start to back off. I remember my dad told me when I've always wanted to be a cop, always since I was very
mm,
little. My grandma,
mm,
before she died, she would tell me that I want to be a policeman, and so that's always been the dream. And I got into an argument with my dad when I was in high school, and he never.
mm,
I don't know that he was ever really supportive of me being a cop, but he had
mm,
this belief that um, nobody should be able to be a cop until they're 25. And I'm like, damn, I'm 18. I'm in high school. I just need a couple more years, and I don't want to wait till I'm
mm,
25. But you know what? Um, and then I suppose this is true with a lot of things my dad says. Not everything, but a lot of them.
mm,
That there's actually some merit to it. I think there might be some merit at not allowing the 20 somethings to be cops because you don't have any life experience, and that's
mm,
the whole point he was making. And even at 25, you have very little life experience, especially if you go from uh, high school to college.
mm.
You're not even really on your own at that point. So um, it's a long way to answer the question about what's shaping me today. It's definitely being on this side of the V.
Mm. That's very deep and interesting to me as well.
Yeah.
Because today, when I see, because I learned about you that while you were a cop, you were basically studying for, I think you were studying for law, right? So
Yeah.
today, I see people, they cannot even handle one task at a time. How did you really manage a very important, like law isn't easy to study and then being a cop on as a main job. How did you manage that?
I didn't sleep very much, which also made me grumpy. But I've never been just do one thing type of guy. I've always been very involved in different things. That's just always who I am, and still am today.
Mm,
I would like to find more time to get my pilot's license.
mm,
Actually, I need to get my medical clearance, and then
mm,
I will make the time to get my pilot's
mm,
license. But I always love learning new things. With the law, thankfully, it's been long enough. I think I can share this. I was at a department that it was nice. If you wanted to go
mm,
out and
mm,
you know pull a bunch of traffic stops, you could.
mm,
If you just wanted to take some time and relax too,
mm,
you could. So I was thankfully at a department where we weren't driven by numbers.
mm,
So there was times where I was able to study my cases, while at work and respond to my calls.
mm,
And it just that helped. But that was also short lived. I would get off work at 6 in the
mm,
morning, and I would have to be in Lansing by 9 for class. It was 3 hours, and then I would get done at noon. I would get home. I would get about 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and then I would be up again to be back at work, changing
mm,
over by
mm,
5:30 that evening. And we did 12-hour shifts. So it was a lot. It was a lot.
Mm,
But you learn that in the Marine Corps, you learn you can function quite well on little sleep.
mm,
There are sacrifices, like I said.
mm,
You definitely are
mm.
grumpier, but your fuse of what you're willing to tolerate from people is definitely less. Probably
Mm,
not a great mix for cops, especially nowadays. You need to
mm.
be very patient with people, um, but you just do it. You set your mind. You set your mind on the goal, and you just get it done.
Yeah, and that's something very important, because if you know where you have to be in future, I think automatically your body and your subconscious helps you get there. If you're unsure about your future, then you just keep on banging your head in different walls, I guess. So,
Oh, for sure.
and this is one thing that I want to ask, because a lot of people find really find time, and they don't find time to do a lot of stuff together, right? I want to know, when you were doing this, how are you actually managing your studies? Did you actually make a schedule, or is this something like on random? What were you exactly doing to manage everything so smoothly at that time?
Um, well, it starts with, if this is what I want, then I
Mm,
have to make a commitment that
mm,
whatever it takes to get it done.
mm,
So studying law school is unlike it's unlike undergrad. It's unlike when I
mm,
got my master's degree. It's not the
mm,
same. It is
mm,
completely different way of learning,
mm,
um, and you had to commit, and that
mm,
meant um, I'm not the smartest guy out there.
mm,
I had to take the time to an effort to read the cases
mm,
and reread them so I
mm,
could understand what was going on, um, and you just have to commit. So my off time um, when I wasn't working, or doing something else, but I I had to study, and that was my
mm,
life,
mm.
and it had to be because once I make a decision on something and set my mind to it, I'm going to accomplish it, and there was no other alternative.
Right. So, Ben, that's a great answer. And I would actually like to talk about it a little bit more ahead. But I have another question, just, digressing a bit. So, why did you basically choose criminal defense as the niche that you wanted to work in? And, well, criminal defense lawyers are generally considered people who defend rapists and murderers and everybody that's wrong in the society. So, coming from, obviously the military background and then the police background, why did you do this? Why did you take this side and not the some other, niche that was more like personal injury or immigration or something like that?
um, well, criminal law is basically all I've known. It's been my life, and so the transition from police officer to prosecutor was pretty
Mm,
natural. And then when I decided to leave the prosecutor's office, I went to an insurance defense firm.
mm.
I say 3 days for about 3.5 days. I think it might have been
Mm.
7 months. But I started bringing in my own cases. There were family law
Yeah.
cases, criminal cases, but
Mm,
I did very little insurance defense.
mm,
And I saw that I was able to bring in some cases, and that kind of got my juices flowing
mm,
on generating cases or generating revenue. And then I worked for a firm that did. I went from there to criminal defense for another firm, another owner. Um, Left there after a few months and opened my own place. And um, I am definitely passionate about criminal law,
mm,
and I'm also passionate about, if the government's going to exercise their right to imprison somebody, or if
mm,
somebody lives in a death penalty state,
mm,
to execute somebody or seek execution of somebody,
mm,
they need to go through it the right way every single time. And I don't believe in this notion that they're they have this big criminal record, they must have just done this, or they're
mm,
accused of a really heinous offense. They must have done it, and you just kind of chalk it up that way. I've never believed in that. I believe more fundamentally that
mm,
we have to defend everybody, no matter if they were factually guilty or not. Because
mm,
who am I to make that determination, and who am I to allow somebody else to make that determination? Our Constitution says a jury makes that determination. And until that's done, they
Mm.
are innocent. And when we start getting into this game of, um, you know, the attorney, the prosecutor, the police, the judge, and even the defense attorney saying, well, they actually did it, so I'm just not going to try that hard.
Mm.
I don't play that. I think
Mm.
that's a disservice. That's what the prosecutor plays. That's what the judge plays. That's what the cops
Mm.
play. But the only person that is supposed to be on the side of the person accused is their attorney, and
Mm.
that's how we do it. So I'm definitely passionate about it. I'm passionate about making the government do what they're supposed to do and holding them accountable. It's not easy. They
Mm.
have all the power, and that's part of what's shaped my views today. You know, is the imbalance of power
Mm.
is massive, and the
Mm.
prosecutors flex that all the time. Most judges are former prosecutors. You
Mm.
know, not you know, I'm getting a little trouble on LinkedIn here recently that from the criticism I've gotten was from two prosecutors, and I respect them both. And I respect their positions, and not all prosecutors do that,
Mm.
uh, and not all judges are slanted so heavily in
Mm.
favor of prosecution.
Mm.
But the reality is, um, talk to the criminal defense attorneys, and they definitely share the same view. There may be exceptions out there,
Mm.
but you realize the mountain that not just the person charged with the crime, but the attorney representing that person has to climb, and
Mm.
it's extremely difficult. And we're talking about people who don't have a lot of money
Mm.
to hire an attorney. So yeah.
Yeah, and that brings us to another point, right? Because the people who come to you, obviously, they're in trouble, right? So you've defended OWIs, DUIs from multi-million dollar frauds and everything, right? So what is within the first 48 hours, if somebody gets in trouble, right? What are the most common mistakes they should avoid uh, when they're being charged, right?
The biggest and the most impactful, um, is to not talk to the police. Do
Mm.
not talk to the police,
Mm.
period.
Mm.
Um, I say anecdotally, half the convictions in this country would not exist if people
Mm.
just shut their mouth.
Mm.
Um, get an attorney
Mm.
and talk with your attorney. If you feel the need to spill everything under the sun, do it with your attorney.
Mm.
Do it with your pastor or priest or somebody, your therapist, somebody that has privilege. Don't do it with the police, and don't
Mm.
trust that the cops got your back or are,
Mm.
let's make this easy. All those are tactics to get you to talk. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. You just make it easier on them if you talk to them. And
Mm.
that is hands down the biggest mistake that people make. It's also the
Mm.
easiest to avoid making, because all
Mm.
you have to say is, I'm not talking to you without my lawyer. And it's done.
Mm.
It is done. And whether you actually get one doesn't matter. You've invoked your right, period. And I would recommend you go get an attorney, at least meet with somebody, talk with them about what's going on. That way they can advise you on some strategy and get ahead
Mm.
of the game. But don't talk to the cops.
Mm. Exactly. And here I have another, a leading question to this, and that is, I've heard that body worn camera footage has completely changed criminal defense, specifically in the last 5 years. So, in your experience, BWC helped the defense or prosecution more, or is that something changing right now?
It helps prosecution more. The reality is that the body cameras, obviously the big push was
Mm.
because of things like Ferguson and other
Mm.
places where there wasn't cameras,
Mm.
and it was supposed to be what shows the world everything, the narrative that's built up that cops are, always using excessive force or they're not justified. The facts are actually not supporting that. It actually exonerates cops way more than it
Mm.
implicates them. What it does do is it offers an opportunity for defense attorneys to argue when they don't show up
Mm.
that there's some nefarious activity going on or there's a reason for that. It does help us with what's actually being said. That's
Mm.
where it actually does help us as defense attorneys, is that the police officer writes in their report, it's their impression of what happened.
Mm.
It's their impression of how things were said. You know, um, my cousin Vinny, that line about him repeating, "I shot the clerk," And when he actually said it, I shot the clerk, but the words on the paper says, I shot the clerk. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what happens with police and how they write reports. And what the
Mm.
body camera does is it allows us to see the context. It allows us to hear how it was said and what actually was said, because cops get it wrong. They do it off. They write reports off of memory, but it is that report that drives absolutely everything. So, it absent the statements, the body cameras, because people don't watch your podcast and listen to good advice. They don't watch my reels or shorts about shut your mouth. Don't talk to attorneys. They just talk to them anyway, or excuse me, don't talk to cops. They talk anyway. And that body camera is now video footage that seals the deal. So they can be helpful. I would say from an evidentiary standpoint, like, are you going to see cops mishandling evidence? You might a couple times, but at least in Michigan, unfortunately, mishandled evidence goes to weight, not admissibility. So it's up to the jury to say, okay, he didn't have gloves when he picked up that gloves on when he picked up the firearm casing, but it's up to the jury to say how much weight. And when the gloves don't matter, fingerprints don't matter on the firearm casing, they're not trying to connect anything to it. It's just they picked it up. It just doesn't mean a whole lot. It's just as an example. But there's ways to use body camera, but I don't think it has the effect that people. I don't think the narrative was that the way it was being portrayed. I don't think it fits that.
Yeah, and I think that's a great advice for everybody who's listening, that you should absolutely not talk to cops and just talk to your attorney. So Ben, I want to shift gears now. Most of this conversation has been about law. I want to spend next few minutes on business, specifically on data, right? Because what I've noticed working with law firms is that every law firm says that they're data driven, but when you look under their hood, it's either like just gut feel, taking decisions, and sometimes just a quick books export that this is the amount of money we're getting and this is the amount of money we're spending. So you built a great firm. I think it's more than 10 people right now, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, we have 18 right
and
now.
then you're generating content. You're also, I looked at the scholarships that you give for students who go into Police Academy and a brand. So I want you to walk through the core functions of law firm one by one, and just explain to our audience what is the most difficult one that you feel and how data has helped you make the right decisions in that particular function.
Okay, this is a big topic. So I would I don't think criminal defense firms by and large are run on data. I agree with you. They may say so, but when you actually get under the hood, I don't know, because most of them are 1 or 2 man shops, and so you don't really need to factor in a lot of things. It's your time. You might have a shared legal assistant, but it's typically eat what you kill, and it just is what it is. When you run a multi-attorney firm with support staff, it's not that way. We actually did not have any insight into our data. I thought I had some. Very, very rudimentary, very high level. Yes, I knew what my P&L said. But it wasn't until I got law KPIs that it drilled into not just the top line, but matter level and the profitability on individual matters. And then I realized something I just did not expect. We do a lot of conflict cases, where I call them conflict cases. They're clients who are eligible for a court-appointed attorney, or not a court-appointed, but a public defender. They don't take the case for whatever reason, and they send it to us. And we spend a lot of time and effort on those cases. And I love my conflict cases because it also serves as a segment of population that typically don't get high-quality legal representation. But what we saw is that we were actually underwater on some of those cases because of the amount of time that we spend as a firm, both attorney and non-attorneys. And that was shocking to me. And we have taken a shift recently at ensuring matter profitability. When we take cases, that the individual case remains profitable as much as that we can, anyway, because we're flat fee. We try to collect in advance. and we scope the fee based off of the client's goals and our experience with what's charged and where they're at, things like that. But that has been very difficult, especially in criminal defense. Is coming up with a pricing structure. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to make really good representation available to people who can't afford it. The solution is not attractive. The solution is volume. The problem with volume is that you need attorneys, and the pace of these cases is extremely fast. It's not like a personal injury case where it will linger for a couple years. These are very, very fast paced. And the finances of criminal defense does not lend itself to having multi-attorney employees. It makes it difficult because at some point that attorney, if they have a business bone in their body, they realize they can make more money on their own. And if they want to do that and carry that risk, then they're going to go do it, which is fine. I support people doing what they want. It just adds a layer of complexity. So running a multi-attorney firm where we have sales, we have marketing, we have operations, your biggest thing is your revenue maker. It's not the attorneys, it's not operations, it is sales. It is the person answering the phone needs to be able to convert that person, and they need to be able to do it without involving the attorney. That's my expectation. Everybody wants to talk to the attorney, but we are a fee for service. And what attorneys tend to do is give it away before we've actually collected the fee. I would do that. And if I don't catch myself, I'll still do that because we like to think we're smart and that they called and we want to give them the solution, the answer to the problem. But really what people want is help along the way. And our sales and intake specialists, the focus isn't about the legal service. The focus is what we're able to provide to the client, peace of mind, a roadmap of what to expect. People expect the legal product secondary. And what they really want is the ability to talk with their attorney, talk with their case manager. We have a dedicated person that also talks to clients. Her whole job is to talk to clients and make sure they're happy. If they're not, figure out what we can do to fix that. And that has been an absolute game changer. I highly recommend other firms to do that. If you have volume at all, make sure you hire somebody. They're not a legal assistant. They're just somebody to talk to clients. That is their sole function. And don't let anybody pile other things on. But sales is absolute paramount. But you have to have the infrastructure once we get the cases. So we have to be able to handle the volume. Criminal defense is volume, and I did not want that to be the truth, but it is. It shouldn't be, but it is. The only way a criminal defense firm makes money is by new clients. And so if we're bringing in 10 new clients a month, we have to put them somewhere. We have to have the capability to provide the service to the client. And we need to be able to do it without the case lingering for a year. We need to be able to push the case and get it resolved, whatever way it's going to be resolved. So you have to have standards within the firm of your case expectations. So we have a standard that we're trying to meet. I don't think we're successful yet, or as successful as I want to be. Misdemeanors resolved in 90 days and felonies in 180. It sounds like a long time. It's not. And I assure you, if defense attorneys started pressing more, getting cases resolved faster, it puts the prosecutor on their heels because they're used to defense attorneys adjourning everything. But when we're ready to go from day one, and we put the foot down and we're not asking for adjournments and we just keep pressing, that's going to put them on their heels, and that's going to put our clients in a better position to have a case resolved in their favor or more favorably than it would. So then we have marketing. the marketing aspect is fairly new to us, new to me, and I'm learning a lot. That's not something that is natural for me. At least I don't think.
Mm.
The videos and stuff, I hate making them.
Mm.
I but I listen to my coaches and I have
Mm.
to, so here we are. But
Yeah.
it just I don't like boasting, and that's what it feels like. And hey, look at me, and I don't like any of
Mm.
that. And I'm having to step outside of my shell,
Mm.
quite a bit, and that's uncomfortable for me. But you got to have some marketing out there. I've been learning from PI firms for
Mm.
about a year now.
Mm.
I um, I started looking at what they do from a marketing and
Mm.
a system standpoint. And, I had no intent to go into personal injury at that
Mm.
time.
Mm.
But I wanted to steal what they did
Yeah.
because they're the experts,
Mm.
why can't we have systems and processes in criminal
Mm.
defense? Why can't we have marketing like they do? Now, granted, we don't have the PI money for the marketing,
Yeah.
but we can use some of those concepts, and we're doing that. We're going to do an event. I wanted to last year,
Mm.
but we couldn't get the logistics sorted out. But we're gonna do an event. You see some firms do backpacks or school supplies and things like
Mm.
that. Um, we're gonna do a car seat event,
Mm. Mm.
and where people can come by and get their car
Mm.
seat inspected, and if
Mm.
they need a replacement, we've got a replacement available.
Great.
We are going to do that this year. We do a lot with community, giving back to communities, or our community,
Mm.
whether it's through school sponsorships, sports teams. We gave a lot to Big Brothers Big Sisters of Lansing.
Mm.
I absolutely love giving back, and I want to give back 10 times as much, as even 100 times as much as what
Mm.
we've done. We've done what we can. I would like to do more. And that, um, you know, a lot of it's chalked up to marketing in a lot of respects.
Mm.
But it's also just being good stewards.
Yeah.
Um, and I believe that um, it's not about, the more money that we make as a law firm
Mm.
or a business, the more we're able to give back. And
Yeah.
businesses are able to do more
Mm.
for people than the government ever will.
Yeah.
And I truly believe in that. And I pay my taxes, but what I'm able to donate to nonprofits, charities, or help individual people, that means more to them, and the impact is stronger. And that's what we try to do.
Yeah, and that's a really wonderful thing that you've shared, and I believe that when you're launching, we can have a full episode on that as well. How it will help the community and what you're doing for the community. That would be a great topic to talk about in future as well.
Yeah.
But Ben, there's a funny story that I want to share with you. I was basically auditing a PI firm who had a large volume, around 40 calls a day, right? NYC firm. And I realized that when I was talking about to their marketing manager, they had an in-house marketing manager. Uh, he said most of our leads come through Google Ads, and they're getting really, really expensive these days, right? So it was hitting around $320 a click in Staten Island. So when we dug down, so they were basically doing billboard. They were getting a lot of referrals as well. They were organic SEO stuff and Google Ads. We realized at the end that it was all scattered. Google Ads wasn't converting as good they thought it was converting, right? And because they did not have that feedback, because in their CRM, when a matter was signed, they would not send the data back to Google. So Google was only showing ads to people who were just tire kickers or not ready to take the service, just calling them, right? And they believed that it's Google Ads which is converting the best, right? So have you tried implementing a system where when a lead comes through your website or a referral, because I believe criminal defense has a lot of referrals, I believe, right? So if that is coming, how do you ensure that you know exactly at a very granular level that this person comes from this marketing effort, and this is the amount of money we got to put into this channel so that we get the most ROI at the end?
Yeah. Well, that's part of it's new to us, and we're learning a lot. We have Call Rail, which is what
Mm.
I'm told helps with that,
Yeah.
and our intake CRM is Lawmatics. We just
Mm.
went to Lawmatics, and so it's kind of still getting built out, but
Mm.
that is something that we know we have to do. That is what,
Yeah.
whether it's correctly configured is a separate question today.
Yeah.
I actually had a meeting with my marketing agency
Mm,
yesterday, where we discussed some of that, making
mm,
sure that um, we are source attributing and
yeah.
it's not manual,
Yeah.
because that's the issue. My sales and intake person, he's supposed
Mm,
to be asking a question,
mm,
but um, it's not yet automatic, and it
mm,
needs to be. But
yeah.
in that needs to be, to the extent possible. We can automate that, and that's what CallRail
Yeah.
is supposed to do. But just making sure that we are using it correctly, and it's not
Yeah.
just another vendor that
Yeah.
we have that we throw money at, and it's not being used correctly. I mean, I think it is, but it's like I said, it's still very new to us, so we're
Yeah.
learning and we're getting
Yeah.
that data, so we can make those informed decisions.
Yeah.
Instead of everybody found us by Google,
Mm,
well, I want to know what page they were on when they click call
mm,
us.
mm,
That's the level of data. We're not there yet. I want
yeah.
to get there, and
Yeah.
that's what successful firms are doing.
Yeah.
And we'll get there. It takes time. I'm impatient, so I think it should have
Yeah.
already happened. But
And the main reason why this is happening, because uh, marketing agencies have great marketers, but usually it's very expensive for them to hire a software developer because this data layer comes from the server, right? So when they have to make the connections between, let's say you're using CallRail or a specific booking calendar, and then you're basically sending that data, creating fields in your CRM, let's say Lawmatics, and then sending that back to Google or Meta. In fact, it's funny. I just want to tell you about this, and you can ask your marketing agency. Sometimes when somebody sees your ad on Instagram or a video, and quite frankly, the algorithm knows that this person has already seen Ben on his short, right? But that person has not clicked on Ben's video. He just had a problem and he typed on Google, and now he's seen your firm or your name on Google. So he clicks on your ad and goes and books an appointment. Now, the biggest problem is that gets attributed to Google, where it should be shared, because the person's journey started from Meta. So all that attribution, that data needs to be transported, so you exactly know where this person is coming from. And it's the same for LinkedIn, it's same for so many other things. And that's where I think software developers need to work together with marketing agencies, and marketing agencies need to understand that they tell the client that you need to get your attribution fixed first before you spend even a single dollar, because a lot of it gets wasted eventually, and it's a lot of money when you get like 50-60% of bad leads in a month, and you're thinking, oh, I spent $10,000 and like $6,000 has gone into waste, and that should not happen. But here, when it's not just about this, about marketing, what have you seen that how data has helped you take right decisions in, let's say, operations, which basically helps, just glue together every other function in your firm? So how do you take decisions there? Because it's important that we should know when to hire somebody, what is the pipeline right now, and what am I going to get in the next month? So whether I need more paralegals, I need another attorney, or I need more staff. So how are you managing that data?
yeah, so from an operations standpoint, we're a mixed bag. Some of our files are hourly,
Hmm.
and so the billable hour drives the
Hmm.
bus when it's an hourly file. And
Hmm.
but for our retained cases,
Hmm.
with criminal defense cases, time on desk is a big
Hmm.
driver,
Hmm.
and we track it from when the case is opened and how long it's been opened. Um, there's different tools that we use, but at the end of the day, it's as simple as a spreadsheet and a date counter. Um, the we also monitor the number of adjournments.
Hmm.
If a case has to be adjourned, it is what it is. But
Hmm.
we do not permit adjournments,
Hmm.
and it's unacceptable for us to request an adjournment because we're not prepared.
Hmm.
Adjournments cost money.
Hmm.
Clients already paid us, but they cost us money
Hmm.
and it delays the
Yeah.
resolution. Clients want things resolved, by and large. Um, so those two are major KPIs that we monitor. And then client satisfaction. We do NPS surveys at
Hmm.
random points during the case. We have technology through our portal that gauges the sentiment of the client, kind of let us know if something's shifting or we need to draw attention to that client. But from an operational standpoint, that those are probably the three biggest: time on desk, adjournments, and client satisfaction.
Mm. Right. That's wonderful, Ben. Ben, you have such a big pool of knowledge that it cannot be confined into just 1 hour episode. And I'd love to have you sometime again to discuss different other functions in depth. Specifically, I would love to talk about the new people who are coming and how AI is affecting them. But honestly, it has been a wonderful conversation. I really liked it. If
Yeah.
I've missed something and you wanna share with my audience, you have the floor.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thanks for the invite. I'd love to get back together and continue our conversation. You know, I'm not able to do this on my own, and I have a team of people that they believe in what we're trying to do. I would love to talk about at another time kind of
Yeah.
my vision of how personal injury is going to open some doors in providing high quality legal defense to those charged with crimes. And that's really what is driving my decision, because I'm seeing the imbalance and trying to find a solution, but also run a business. And it's not easy.
Yeah.
But I can't do this on my own. So all the credit to the team. I have a wonderful team that makes sure clients are happy, or as happy as they can be. Sometimes we miss the mark, but we try to fix it. And I am forever grateful for them.
Thank you, Ben. On that note, the great comment that, and it's basically a quote, in fact, Ben has said, businesses are able to do more than governments ever will. So thanks everybody for joining in today. And if you want to contact Ben, we will basically have his credentials down in the description. So do contact him. He's an honest guy, and I believe it might help you a lot. Thank you, Ben, again for coming. Have a nice day. See you sometime again.
Thanks, you too.